Hi, Eli. This is Dr. Don. I don't know if we're going to be able to connect, so I thought I might take a few minutes and give you some comments this way on your submittal. I know after you saw my initial comments, you started to rethink how you should approach this, and you wanted to talk about it. And I apologize that I missed your email and we haven't connected. So anyway, um, this is your document over here, and this is the synopsis of what we're supposed to do for the coming up with this initial research plan. And remember that this is a first cut, and the whole intent was to throw some ideas out there, for you to throw ideas out there, and then to get feedback, and then to refine. And it's a iterative process like that research. Usually you have an idea and you talk about it with a colleague, or you do some literature review, and then you refine your idea, and you refine your idea, and you refine your idea. So don't get discouraged that you've got to backtrack a bit before you move forward. You're interested in triathlon, so I'm gathering it that you're a triathlete. And this first paragraph, you talk about um, the fact that aerodynamics, can be very important to how well a triathlete does in a triathlon. And you particularly say it's the bike portion of the race because that's where they're going the fastest, that aerodynamics logically would be most important. And that makes sense. I understand that. So you go on to say that there's an evolution of equipment partly aimed to improve aerodynamics, make people go faster and expend less energy. And so you're saying the purpose is to deliver the validity of aerodynamic equipment. I think that's a little bit of a fuzzy question. When you're coming up with your research question, your first cut at it, you've got to remember it's got to be something that's measurable. And you've got to state it in a way sooner or later that you can come up with data that will help you measure and answer your question. And this is too vague. Determine the validity. How do you define validity? And so you need to hack away at that to make that more concrete, more measurable. Let me check and see what I said up here. Yeah, I made the comment that you need to get actual triathletes. I'm guessing that you are a triathlete and maybe you're a member of a club or group, and you can get the folks in that group to participate. Or maybe there is a Facebook page or triathletes that you could post your request for people. So I don't think that would be a problem, that you'll be able to get triathletes in general to sign up. Let's see the next comment there. This one, just going over the validity is difficult. And what I restated there, do you mean you want to know how important the aerodynamic characteristics of equipment used for the bike portion are to time participants post? And if your question is that you want to see how much it reduces the time they spend on the bike or reduces the energy they spend on the bike portion, you're going to have to obviously get access to finishing times of the people that participate in your survey. And you would have to get, their times over a number of triathlons, and that may be difficult if you've got, some people that may have only done one or two triathlons, and others maybe have done bunches. So you'll have some apples and oranges there. The other hand, I said you may be more interested in and possibly able to get more easily a more qualitative appreciation. And I know we're quantitative methods, and there's some overlap, but fuzziness between qualitative and quantitative. But you could ask feel type questions. How much importance do triathletes give the factors that you come up with? The bike itself, the tri-suit, the helmet, the other factors that you've listed there. How do they feel about them? I mean, you could use Likert scales or rating scales to get them to quantify at least a little bit how important they feel about those things. One person may if you're using a 5-point Likert, say the tri-bike is a 5 in importance. Another may say it's just a 3. Or if you're using a rating scale, you may find out that the average triathlete that participates in your survey says the tri-bike is 80%. That's how important they feel it is. So you might, try these field type questions. Let me go on down here. And step 1, state your topic and dependent variable. And this could be refined a bit. I think my first comment was here you're saying time is the dependent variable. And so that would imply that you would begin collecting the finishing times or the bike portion times. And you may be interested in both. I'm not a triathlete. I used to be a marathoner, but I'm imagining that if folks could reduce the amount of energy they spend on a bike, then that would leave more time for the run, more energy for the run. And so you might want to be looking at both their bike times and their overall finish times or their run times and see how those are related. The population, you said for this research, triathletes of all skill levels. And again, I'm talking about your group that, hopefully you know how to access a group of triathletes. And you're saying all skill levels. A little bit later on, you're saying you wanted people who had participated in an Olympic distance triathlon. So I'm gathering there's different length triathlons. And so, all skill levels versus only those who participated in Olympic distance. So you probably need to refine that again. Let me see what else I said there. Yeah, well, let's reduce your sampling frame because you're only going after Olympic distance folks. Step 3 over here is describe your sampling probability or non-probability. And again, this is the same comment I had for everyone, that if we're doing an online survey, then to some extent, this is a convenience sample, or we at least have self-selection bias. People have to volunteer to participate. And the only way to really get probability in that would be if you were able to tap into a huge group of triathletes and had many, many, many folks respond. Then you could do some probability selection on the people that responded. But for our purposes, since we're probably going to have small numbers of people participate, we're just going to have to accept the fact that we've got a convenient sample or at least some self-selection in there. So I appreciate you're trying to use probability. That's the best way, but reality has to seep in sometimes. Step 4, dependent variable equal time. And here's where we got to operationalize. And that just means that we got to take this concept that you've come up with, this initial question, and start chipping away at it so that we can figure out how we're going to gather data to answer the question. And that means, how do we make this thing measurable? And then how do we communicate that to your potential respondent so they know how to answer the questions to give you the data you need? So that's all operationalizing is. It's just taking a somewhat abstract initial question or concept and turning into something that you can ask people and then get responses and data that are really going to be helpful in answering your question. We say, construct at least 2 measures, questions and responses. Let me see what I said over here. If you're going to have time as your dependent, that's my initial response, then you need to be able to collect that time. I gave you some more information and said the same thing. Will we be able to get bike times, or do you need to restate your research question? Something like, how important do triathletes believe bike aero is to their bike times? How important do triathletes believe the tri-suit is to their bike times? How important do triathletes believe helmets aerodynamics is to their bike times, etc. Reframe the question like that. And we'll go on down here. Then we've got to get our independent variables. And remember, on an independent variable, what you're trying to tie up your dependent variable, and this is how you're going to get your data, and you need something to be able to analyze, really. Um, uh, we generally think about demographics here, or something akin to demographics. What you've got listed here are the 6 factors that you believe are important in bike aerodynamics, and you could go at it that way. You could, ask them to rate each of these 6 factors in importance, and you could do that a number of ways with rating scales for each one of these, or you could get them to rank these from 1 to 6. That might be the easiest way to do it. Just tell them to give a ranking from 1 to 6 on each of these 6 factors. Which would make it easy for you to say, well, they ranked the tri-suit first or the tri-bike first. But you would also need to collect demographics, and I say that not only just gender and age, and but prior triathlon experience, what kind of triathlons, if you're going back to the Olympic distance versus non-Olympic distance triathlons, how many triathlons they've run, are they elite triathlons, are they professional triathletes, are they beginner triathletes? You need to ask those kind of questions, and then you could start answering a number of questions, and I put this on here, and I'll email you this document. If you reframe your question, how do they feel about bike aero, then you would include gender, age, experience, finish times, etc. So you could say at the end, triathletes who have completed 3 or more triathlons believe the tri-suit is very important, or most important if you had them rank the 6 factors. Our female triathletes place a higher importance on body composition to improve bike times than males, etc. So once you get those demographics combined with your dependent variable, you can start coming up with conclusions like that. And that gets us down here into step 6, which is we operationalize those independent variables. And I just talked about that a bit. And again, I'm just saying use instead of the yes/no categorical question. That doesn't give you a lot of data. It gives you some, but it doesn't give you as much as you could get from using a rating scale, for example, to answer those questions, or ranking, as we talked about. And what did I say on this one? There again, there's 2 questions. There, the material of your tri-suit, would you prefer a sleeveless over a long sleeve suit? It's 2 questions again, both yes, no, as opposed to making them on a rating scale. And the same thing down here for your factors and purchase of the helmet. I added in, you might want to ask such questions, what went into your decision-making process of buying the helmet? Was it the manufacturer of the helmet? Was it the color? Was it the aerodynamics of the helmet? Was it the cost of the helmet? Was it how comfortable the helmet was? How light it was? The weight of it, etc. Those kind of questions might go into how you decide to buy a helmet. I don't really know about the disc or deep dish wheel. That's over my head. But again, instead of this is an open-ended question, the way you've got it written there, which means they would give a text answer, and you can analyze using some qualitative techniques answers that are free form like that. But it's easier for our purposes if you make this into a quantitative question. Again, how important is a deep dish or disc? And then make that a rating scale for, one way you could do that. This next question there, you've got how much. There you go. That's easily put into a rating scale. How much electronic devices. Okay, 7 is to state your research question. And we've got one independent variable that you think we most related. So out of all of the independent variables that you came up with for your primary research question, you need to say this one is most important. And you said, how is a triathlon bike related to what triathletes think about aerodynamics and time? And let's see what I said there. and I restated it. Which of the 6 factors commonly associated with increasing bike speed, lowering bike times, will triathletes state is the most important? That may be your first question. You just want to know of those 6 factors that you came up with, which is the most important. Or you might say, another secondary research question: how do experienced triathletes rate the 6 factors? And then another sub question might be: how does the gender of the triathlete impact on their rating of importance of the 6 factors? Those could be sub questions that you come up with that you could answer from the same data collection. And then lastly here, you need to state the hypothesis. You need to go out on the limb. And you say here that the use of aerodynamic equipment will increase speed of travel. Again, I think that's going to be a little bit difficult to answer because you've got so many variables here. It's all the various people, how much training they have, what their innate potential is, how they're feeling on the day of the races, what the weather is like on the day of the race. Those things impact the travel time, the finish times, as well as the aerodynamics of the bike. So I think you need to, rephrase that. And what I came up with there would be one possible hypothesis is triathletes believe the use of a tri-bike or tri-suit is the most important factor in reducing bike times. So you're saying of those 6 factors, I think that the triathletes in general, or another one, experienced triathletes believe the tri-suit is the most important way. You need to pick something from your independent variables and your dependent variable and go out on a limb and say, this is what I think the research is going to show. So anyway, this is a long dialogue here. I apologize we haven't gotten together. I'm going to put this up on YouTube and send you a link to it, and then send you your marked up document again. And again, all you need to do is just click on these things and my comments will come up. And then you can reply. If you want to get a dialogue going here, you can, click on reply and then type in your comments. And then when I get it, send it back to me, then I'll be able to see your comments there so we can get a dialogue going there. So I hope this helps, Eli. And again, I apologize about missing your email. Let me get this done and bottle up and send it to you here shortly.